Not sure what this is about, but we'll see. Snow. It's awesome. I love it. It's Napoleon. It's the Napoleon. Just get a flavor of it. You really can't tell what it is.
It's not brilliant. Where are the Pratzen Heights? Yeah, it's a real shame.
Well, that's okay.
It's a real shame.
It's great being
I
here.
often wonder what they would have done on the day of the battle with the visibility as it is. You wouldn't know what's going on at all, would you? So that's another bit of his luck, really, isn't it? Because here we are on the 1st of December and we've actually got a whiteout. So, yeah, okay, so let's just do a bit of orientation first. So north, building is west, so the sun. Brno, Austerlitz, the Santon, which you would normally see, is over there. The Pratzen Heights will be over there to the southeast. We've got the Austerlitz brook, which is running down this kind of route into the wooded line of the valley there. Swing around and it will join up with the Goldback.
The weather wasn't like this during the war. He's disappointed because you can't see anything.
And then we'll converge at a village called Austerlitz. Further, if you follow that line of trees down to the right, you can just make a little village out there. That's the village of Yerkovitz. And then if you went beyond Yerkovitz, if you went further east, you come across Blazovitz, and it's slightly coming in the direct line.
You're not going to see anything.
So if I point those places out here, on this map, so I'm pointing out towards the Santon, which is going in that direction there. So Austerlitz is the Austerlitz highway here, okay, which is this road here. They're really using this main road as their axis of advance.
This is
and facing
French.
them will be the forces under Bagration. And they're going to have a bit of a mini battle. What goes on there doesn't really affect the outcome of this battle. And Bagration gets his troops away at the end of the battle in pretty good order. It's the only force that they're able to rally around later on. Then what we've got here is in the ground over here to our right, in this dead ground to our right, are the forces of Van Dam, would be nearest to us, and Saint-Hilaire. Now I don't exactly know where they were, but they're in the low valley ground, okay, so you have to take your pick. I think nobody can say for absolutely sure, but this is the ground here. And then in the ground over here, this dead ground here, is where Bernadotte was. Bernadotte had come up a couple of days before the battle, and Bernadotte was in this dead ground here, so was the Guard, and so was Udine. So you can see how the ground is used really effectively to work the snow for the troops. And it's misty in the mornings here, yeah, this time of year. But also given the fact that the Allies had done no reconnaissance at all. Okay, they'd only just occupied the Pratzen Heights in the afternoon of the 1st of December, and they were trying to reorganise themselves. So they hadn't really a clue of what the dispositions were here. Soult's 3rd division was under a chap called General Legrand, and he had his biggest task of the day. He really had to protect the whole line of the gold from Austerlitz, which is here, which is down there, from Austerlitz, which is where his headquarters were, all the way down through Austerlitz down to
This is just a flavor. It's just neat being here. It doesn't matter if I can't see anything. He's so disappointed now though, but that's okay. I'm not. But this is where the French, part of the French army was lining up all throughout here. And Napoleon was around here somewhere. He was, I think over this way,
And he's got his own division. Also, there's a detachment under a chap called Austerlitz, which is underneath infantry, and they will get into action first. What else can we say about the French forces? I think we've talked about it. Oh, so the cavalry. Where's all the cavalry at this moment in time? They should be milling around here. Okay, milling around here somewhere.
all the heavy cavalry is around here. The cuirassiers and the cavaliers and the dragoons.
Under the overall command of Kutuzov. We've got the cavalry forces under Liechtenstein, and they've spent the evening and night driving through here, cutting through the other columns.
This is the northern sector of the battlefield.
The second column under Langeland and the third column here under Dutch. And obviously, they're all most helpful.
Yeah, so the Russians and the Russians are straight ahead. But you can't see nothing, but it's not a big deal.
The risk of some oversimplification on my part. Napoleon, if you look at it from his point of view, he's now got his pieces on the military chessboard as he thinks they should be.
Yeah.
So now he's actually moving towards consummating his particular plan.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what he's doing here in the morning of the 2nd of December, he's saying, come and get me.
Right.
That's what he's wanting you to do. Come and get me, and the Allies will oblige.
Yeah, all right.
The only weak point for him early on in the morning is the distance that Friant is from the battlefield. To shore up this right flank. Now, you could argue that he's overcompensated the strike force up here, because Bernadotte's corps doesn't really see flanking until the latter part of the battle. And ditto for Oudinot as well. So there would have been, so he's got Oudinot, he had the Guard, and the Guard aren't really committed as a body. So he had plenty of reserves here that are hardly used in the battle at all, that he could have sent down here.
The route actually come from a march, just in time.
Yeah, so
I
Davout's
mean, that
march.
was a huge gamble, because if he didn't make it in time, they would have been able to, French or Allies would have been able to turn a flank, right? And that was their plan.
So
this way.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I mean, that takes a lot of guts and or faith in your commanders that he's going to make this long march and show up just in time.
Yeah, you're right.
It's just kind of a example of the interaction between the participants. Everybody's very well informed, knowledge, what have you, of the battle. That's what makes it neat. But there's too many people sitting around, standing around there. And I understand it. I just love being here.
Yeah, if we just pull up, yeah, if we just pull up opposite the that road. Can he pull up on? No, we don't need to. We just need to
What they they believe is that where they patched the holes.
So there's another 3 here
cannons.
as well.
Here's here.
It's of dubious provenance, but there you go. This is the pheasantry at Sokolnest.
Oh.
Sokolnest pheasantry.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the Pratzen Heights are off to our left.
Yeah.
So this was held by Legrand.
Can you see?
So
Did you get it?
Again, you're starting to get an idea of how effective this was as a defence line.
Oh, wow. The pheasantry. There's a castle around here of some sorts.
So you can see gentle rolling slope down from the Pratzen Heights to here. What a great killing ground this would be for guns. But the French didn't have a particularly large force here in the pheasantry.
Nope.
There was only a few hundred. It was the I think it was the Therese Dupont Italian unit that were occupying this this pheasantry, and I think there was only about 300 or 400 of them. Another 100 had been sent down southwards to reinforce Telnitz. So it was very, very lightly defended.
This is in the south central part of the battlefield. Is here. This this village wasn't here, or it was, but it was only a few houses, as Alan said. But I think we're going to the castle.
I thought they were fish ponds. Yeah. You say you want to use the drone. Yeah, to get all the fish. You put the car up in there, drain the lake, take all the fish out, and go through the water. I mean, probably force them out to the stream. Just obviously got all there.
Enough. We're in Telnitz. By the pheasantry. Another Catholic shrine. It's pretty neat. St. Anthony, I guess. We are still in Telnitz.
I'm terrified about being counted out.
And we are going to a Telnitz mound. Like I said, the pheasantry was here. This is like the south central part of the battlefield. And there was not too many French forces were here. In front of somebody's house, that's kind of cool. There's an eagle. Russian, Austrian, French. another shrine. That's cute. Oops, excuse me. That looks neat.
This is really high. But where we are now is we're on what's called the Austerlitz Mound. And behind us is the village of Austerlitz. So we're going to walk back into it. And this was the strong point, anchor in the right flank of the Grand Line.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, you're back.
I almost did the splits.
Oh my God.
In this low ground here was the Satcham Pond. Just down, if you follow that slope down, follow it to the end of the vineyard there, that low ground there would have been the Satcham Pond. And beyond that there was the Menitz Pond as well. And there was a causeway that went between the two of them. Just a note on the ponds. Having these kind of ponds in Central Europe was very common in those days. And it was farming fish. So they weren't necessarily that deep, and what they would do each year, the lakes were created by damming the river, and then to farm the fish they would just simply drain the lake and then walk out and pick up the fish, and then they would fill it up again. So that, you know, draining the ponds was quite a frequent occurrence, which is why when you look at the ground there, there's no significant depression to show the lakes are. But we don't know how deep those lakes were.
If we're that close to the ponds, I'm thinking this is the far southern section of the battlefield. I think I got that well enough. That's neat.
So this area now is completely been drained. You'll see that the streams have been polarised, and it's now good agricultural land. The Pratzen Heights are there. You can just start to see them making their way up. Can you just concentrate hard?
Can't really see it very well.
And the edge of them is probably straight over here. And so you've got the Rousey Brook, which has flowed from...
Oh, there it is.
They flowed through Grenadier.
Yeah, let's just go right through here.
Flowed over this low ground here, and it would have been... it joins the...
It's going to show up on cameras. No chance.
I can zoom in
You
now.
can see it, but
Yeah.
you won't be able to see it on the social.
So we're here now to talk about the opening shots of the battle. So we had a small advance army around about 5,000 men, and we had three general armies. This force was made up of a couple of Grenzer battalions and a couple of Saxon battalions. These were militia and border troops. Does anybody know more about Austrians than I do? Because you probably know a lot more. The difference between Grenzer and Settler is Grenzer is border, isn't it?
Yeah, Grenzer.
Settler, I think Settler is a form of militia. Is that right?
Grant were border.
And border troops normally are raised with the intention that they don't have to leave the country, because that's their role, is just to protect the borders.
Turks. Gets the
And
Turks.
some of these have been raised in Hungary and brought across, and some are from Austria itself. So they're not particularly high caliber troops. They're also supported by a number of squadrons of cavalry under the command of General Stuttenheim, who has left us quite a good account of the battle. Stuttenheim was commanding the cavalry here. So I'm going to read you an account from him in a minute. But essentially what's happening is that the French are going in here. It's the 3rd Regiment of Line. They have 3 battalions, and there's a company that's come down from the Tourelles and Folk that have been sent down to reinforce them. And initially they hold this high ground. And I think you can see how this knoll dominates all the surrounding ground. So this is where the initial fight is, in this small area. Now it's a very good defensive position if you can see what's coming. But when this kicks off, it's about it's a small hour. 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. It's not light, so I would imagine you'd be feeling rather vulnerable here. Behind. And Austerlitz has grown much outwards since then.
Now I know where this
There
was.
is a narrow channel, a ditch, effectively, which was quite formidable apparently in 1805. So once the French were pushed out of this position, they were able to successfully withdraw back to the ditch and hold that line of the ditch, and there's a whole series of walls to the houses on the other side. So the Austrians, battalion at a time, would come in, they'd win this ground, they'd push the French back to the ditch, then they wouldn't hold it and the French would counterattack. So Keimer would send in another battalion, and so that kind of...
This is just an example of
piecemeal reinforcements.
now I understand where we're at. Okay, this is the far right line of the French. So so we're going to go in. The French were pushed back into the actual village, and we're going to start going in to where the French defended by a church. So eventually the French were pushed back into this village. And like I said, we're going to go and see the church where they actually defended and held up the Austrians. Can't tell. No English, no English. But that talks about the battle.
Dobrý den.
Jo, dobrý den.
Okay. Well, Chalmers Church, which is the heart of the little village of Chalmers, which in 1805 was just one street with houses on either side of it. Once the French had been pushed off the Chalmers Mound, then it was back into this village that they withdrew, and they carried out a stout defence.
Yeah, you know.
Eventually there were 3 battalions of the 3rd.
Village school children rehearsing to light the tree tonight. Yeah, that is so neat.
Děti můžou si vás vyfotit, jsou to Angličani a Američani.
So, of course it's all modern around here, but you can kind of imagine all the fighting going on along here with troops coming in and out. For reinforcements and such.
And to our left,
Minutes.
to our front left, or if you're looking out the right window, to the left of that is Austerlitz. And so once the 108th and the 3rd have been pushed out of Telnitz, they withdraw over this open.
There's a Pratzen Heights. A better. Well, now there it comes up into view, I think.
So our next stop is going to be the opportunity for you to be able to walk down the Pratzen Heights. But I think everybody can jump off the bus to start off with, and I'll describe what we can see, if anything, from the Pratzen Heights. And then those that aren't walking can jump back on the bus and meet us at the bottom of the slope.
We're on the Pratzen Heights, where all the Russians divisions were assembled. I thought there was a museum or something up here, but it's somewhere. Thought it was. See almost the whole battlefield. Then Telnitz is down this way, and the fish ponds are down that way from where the movie showing and they're blowing up a lake. Didn't happen.
Okay, I think you should go here. We're on the forward slopes now. What we can see directly ahead of us to the west is the Austerlitz pheasantry, that wooded area. And we drove along, didn't we, earlier on this morning, and we saw those blazes in the walls. Okay, so that's the Austerlitz pheasantry. As that wooded area comes to an end, following this line of hedges down from our left all the way down, that's where we're going to be walking, those that are walking. Just as it ends there is Austerlitz Castle. The castle today is not the castle it was in 1805 because that was destroyed, but it's a castle that's been rebuilt in the 19th century. Then between Austerlitz Castle, to the left of it, you can see the ground kind of opens up a bit. That was completely open ground until you come to a little more built-up area, a darker area as we look at it, which is where Austerlitz itself was. And then we have to keep coming left. You can see a very narrow chimney tower, very prominent. Keep coming left, and you can just make out now those pylons that are in front of the tunnel. Do you remember seeing those pylons? You can just make them out there. That in there, somewhere in there, is Telnitz. I was hoping you could see the white church spire.
I can't see,
Visibility is so
but
poor. So
I'm trying to go in.
put the Austerlitz pond, sorry, the suction pond over in that direction there. So we've got suction pond,
So
we've got Telnitz,
that's looking south.
we've got some open ground, and we've got
Well, it's not
Castle.
looking south.
Then we've got Austerlitz pheasantry, and look how far that stretches. And then the ground opens up again, and then the village over there, well, there is a village there, that's called Austerlitz. So it's over this ground here that those first three Austrian and Russian columns will come down. We've already talked about Kindmayer and his advance guard at Telnitz, and we've seen how Doktorov has come around the south and is waiting for these other columns to come down. We are now in the position of Longeron's second column. They would have come down over this ground, and Przybyszewski would have come in between Kobelnitz and the pheasantry. So he would have been attacking the right of the pheasantry, Longeron would be the left of the pheasantry, and Austerlitz itself. Doktorov would come in to the right, to the left of Austerlitz, to attack that and support what's going on in Telnitz. Okay, so we've got those three columns. And then beyond that is Doktorov. Now, for want of a better place to do it, I think I should talk about how we are going to launch these attacks. And I'm going to quote from Tolstoy, and Tolstoy quotes from Mikhailovsky, who wrote the history that Tolstoy used a lot. So this is Tolstoy from War and Peace. And he says, as when a window is opened, a whiff of fresh air from the fields enters a stuffy room, so a whiff of youthfulness, energy and confidence of success reach Kutuzov's cheerless staff with the galloping advent of all these brilliant young men. Why aren't you beginning, Mikhail Ilyarovich? Said Emperor Alexander hurriedly to Kutuzov, glancing courteously at the same time to Emperor Francis. I am waiting, Your Majesty, answered Kutuzov, bending forward respectfully. The Emperor, frowning lightly, bent his ear forward as if he hadn't quite heard. Waiting, Your Majesty, repeated Kutuzov. Prince Andrew noticed that Kutuzov's upper lip twitched unnaturally as he said the word waiting. Not all the columns have formed up yet, Your Majesty. The Tsar heard, but obviously did not like the reply. He shrugged his rather round shoulders and glanced at Novositz, who was near him, as if complaining of Kutuzov. You know, Mikhail Ilyarovich, we are not on the Empress's field, where a parade does not begin till all the troops are assembled, said the Tsar, with another glance at the Emperor Francis, as if inviting him, if not to join in, at least to listen to what he was saying. But the Emperor Francis continued to look about him and did not listen. That is just why I do not begin, sire, said Kutuzov in a resounding voice, apparently to preclude the possibility of not being heard, and again something in his face twitched. That is just why I do not begin, sire, because we are not on parade and not on the Empress's field, he said clearly and distinctly. In the Emperor's suite, all exchanged rapid looks that expressed dissatisfaction and reproach. Old though he may be, he certainly should not speak like that, their glances seemed to say. The Tsar looked intently, unobservantly into Kutuzov's eye, waiting to hear whether he would say anything more. But Kutuzov, with respectfully bowed head, seemed also to be waiting. The silence lasted for about a minute. However, if you command it, Your Majesty, said Kutuzov, lifting his head and again assuming his former tone of a dull, unreasoning but submissive general, he touched his horse and, having called Miloradovich, the commander of the column, gave him the order to advance. Kutuzov accompanied his adjutants, rode at walking pace behind the carabiniers. When he had gone less than half a mile in the rear of the column, he stopped at a solitary, deserted house that had probably once been an inn, where two roads parted. Both of them led downhill, and troops were marching on both. So Miloradovich has started his commencement. Kalarat has done the same. Then we got Privashevsky and Longrun. They're all on the march, and this is taking place around about 7:30 in the morning. The troops are on the march and they're coming down. Doktrov is the first one to get into position. So those that are going to move at a pace.
What formation would they have been in, Alan? The columns?
So I don't know the formation. I'm assuming they're columns, and that's what we're going to practice now. Why would they be in column?
You can
Ease of movement.
move better,
exactly.
faster.
It's easier to move as well.
Yes.
Those that are going to walk, we're going to experience that now. But what they would do is they would march in column, but anticipate forming into line as they came into contact with the enemy.
Yep,
Right.
yep.
Can you see all the
Walkers.
hairs down there? All the hairs running across the field.
Are you really seeing that?
Yeah.
You're kidding me. Well, let me go in with this.
Because they're hairs rather than rabbits, you can see by the long legs and the ears.
Really? This goes in pretty far. I can't see though because of the damn view. But I'll look when I get back. We're on maneuvers.
Our column has been depleted already.
Cannon fire. Yeah, so this is, I don't know, which one are we? Which column are we? Oh well. This is like when me and my two brothers did the Pickett's Charge at Gettysburg.
It's good walk. It's great walking the ground, though, isn't
Yeah,
it? You
yeah.
know, put you in there.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was not flat. Pickett's Charge was not on a flat field at all.
Okay, let's stop here. Can we just form, right, I'm going to stand here. I want you all to face me in one line, shoulder to shoulder, please. One line,
One
shoulder
line.
to shoulder.
Shouldn't we tallest to shortest? Something like we did.
Like school.
And all I'm going to do
You're in the
is
Grenadier
we're going to-
Company.
After the command, by the left, quick march, okay, just at a gentle pace, we are going to march forward, but we've got to keep in step. We're not in step. We've got to keep
Yeah,
in line.
this ain't gonna work.
You're going to put you to your left and your right,
I
make sure you
can't
don't
do
lose formation. Okay?
Right foot. Right foot.
The objective here is to try your hardest to keep your dressing with the people that you're marching with, okay?
Right foot.
Right, I'm going to start with your left foot, okay?
Left
So,
foot.
That's that the type piece of string to it, like I do.
quick march. Left, right,
I'm awful. Well, no, I
Come on, we're going too fast in the middle.
Go too slow now, Rick.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. You would not expect, well done, is what I would say is well done. You kept your dressing up really well. You would not normally expect to be able to march anywhere near that pace when you know, on a battlefield in the 19th century. That was a really fast pace.
Ironically, the snow.
Yeah, it would be, yes, yeah.
It's interesting how sort of you got carried away down the slope, moving faster.
Ironically, I think the snow helps the footing.
Yeah. And I think you're ignoring the enemy as well.
Yes.
Okay,
So
so what we're going to do
concentrate.
now
You're not
is
as
we're going to
frightened.
try and do this at a slightly faster pace and keep the dressing together, okay? So, by the left, quick, march. Left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, stop. Okay, good, that's pretty good. Now, let's get into column 2 wide. So,
Form on the centre.
Form on the side.
form on the centre.
Right, Biddy man.
Alright, so we've done that now.
I'll be a fire marker on the rear.
A grenadier, huh?
Quick, march. Left, right, left, right.
Don't cut it. Right, left, right.
Yeah, that's really good. But
Yeah.
do you notice the difference?
My shin
is
isn't doing
you're
good.
doing this too well. Normally there are people that plug out the dressing and all sorts, but you're doing it really well. The difference should be in column we can move across the ground a lot quicker.
Yeah.
Now we're in column, okay? Let's obviously in 1805 there were 9 companies in a column, and they would march there's 3 column formations they could march in. They would march in a column of divisions, and a column of divisions would be 2 companies wide. So for the sake of argument, I'm just going to use 4 companies here. Grenville, can you be a 5th company?
Yeah.
Okay, so if we're going to go into column of divisions, that would be 2 companies abreast. So Mike and Keith, if you just go to the right of Ruth, and if you come forward, Greg and John, and Min, you go to their right. Grenville, if you join them on the right, you're stand at the rear. Okay, so now that is what you'd call a column of divisions. Okay, so it's 2 companies wide, and the advantage of that is now you've got a much wider frontage to engage in a firefight. Okay, now you can be in a company of half divisions, and a company in half divisions in this example here would be half company width. Okay, so that would be to what we're using here would just be 1 file. Okay, if you're using it as a comparison. Okay, or you can be in a column of battalions, and that would be 1 company width with all columns behind you. So they have all these different formations depending on what they anticipate they're going to meet at the other end. Now the favoured formation of the French army at this time was what they call the order mixed, and that was a mixture of columns and line, and that would give them the advantage of being able to deploy into a longer line if they wanted to, or if they were to meet cavalry, they could quickly move into a square formation. So just to give you an example of the order mixed, Greg, if you could just stand behind John there, and Grimble, if you could stand behind me, and yeah, well, like that. That's the order mix. Okay, if you're all representing a company or battalion in that format, so we've got the advantage here of firepower to the front, but we've still got this formation. So in the order mixed, you would be able to move a lot quicker than you would be able to in line, be able to maintain your dressing. Now, if you came up against a major firefight, John, come round to the front, and you come round, Greg, I'll come round here. It's very easy to be able to deploy into a bigger line for a firefight. So just go back to where you came from. And now by cavalry, well,
Chris, pop in there.
Chris, you can just pop into the middle there, okay? And if you just turn to the outsides,
we're in square.
square. And it's
Oh, I
like
see. Is that the square?
It's just that quick.
You don't want to be square when you're getting fired on by artillery.
No, of course you don't.
No, or infantry.
But yeah, I mean, you can find out by infantry, you form lines to go in close. But you're in square because the cavalry's here. All right, so you find yourself in square. The cavalry, is everybody okay with this?
Yep.
Talking about? So you formed yourself in square. You're surrounded by cavalry, and you're waiting. And you're waiting for your cavalry to come up. You're waiting for their cavalry to go away, or you're waiting for your artillery to come up. But you stay in that square formation. And there's a number of examples where eventually squares will be destroyed. Most famously, I think, the Battle of Eylau, where I think it was the 4th line, find themselves completely surrounded by a load of Russian cavalry. And Napoleon tells one of his Marbo, I think, tells that story, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He says to Augereau, bring in the fourth. And so Augereau turns around to one of his ADCs and he says, right, okay, I want you to ride over to the colonel of the 4th Regiment, who's in the middle of all this swirling cavalry in square, and bring him in, because it's the only way they can communicate. So his aide-de-camp takes the order, jumps on his horse, draws his sword, charges into the mass of Russian cavalry, and is seen no more. And Marbo's telling the story because he was an aide-de-camp of Augereau at the time. He was not next in line, but he was the next in line after that. And he saw the bloke whose turn it was next, hit the orders again, draws his sword, charges into the swirling mass as never seen again. Marbo, Christ, he's seen what's happened, he's got to take the order. So he gets the order, he stuffs it into his pocket, and he just puts his head down, and he gallops through as quick as he can. He doesn't even try to engage in the fight until he gets through to the 4th. Then he says to the colonel of the 4th, the Emperor says, you must withdraw back to the lines. And effectively he says, well, I've got no chance of that, I'm surrounded by cavalry. But of course the French were crafty, weren't they? They could unscrew the top of their eagle, and he gave it to Marbo, and he stuffs it inside his jacket, and he jumps back on his horse, and he brings the eagle back. There's a lot more to that tale actually, because he gets knocked out and he loses his clothing or whatever it is. Yeah, so but it's a great story to go on, but what it kind of gives you an idea of is what it's like to be in a square, how vulnerable you are if you're surrounded by cavalry, but also the life of being an ADC wasn't particularly.
Yeah.
Rabbits running all over the place, guys.
But the point of just making the point, so now the trepidation of coming out of this hollow, and we're going to mount the crest of this hill.
So this is the end of the Pratzen Heights. We just walked all the way down. There's a gully there, and there's the pheasantry that we came by earlier. So that's what they had to look forward to. And we're back in here. Well, yet almost got hit. I'm not sure if this was actually part of the pheasantry. I bet it was. I bet it was.
Oh, I would say that's Second World War, but...
Have you found a cannonball?
No, musket ball. Second World War. Red Army.
I guess it's lunchtime. Okay. Awesome. Since 1540. Look at that. A restaurant. We stopped to have a refreshment. So that's the 1550, and then this is a rebuilt castle. Wait, I didn't even see that coming out.
Column, the second column, and also the rightmost part of Doktrov's column and the leftmost part of Pribashevsky's column. Itself, Sokolnitz was only held by a very weak force. It was held by the Tirailleurs Depot Italians, and then the 27th line was sent southwards from Kobelnitz by Legrand to reinforce, to stiffen at the fight here. But they were not really significant units to be able to defend. What you've all seen now is quite a large position running the length of the pheasantry into Sokolnitz Castle, which is behind us. The front of us here you can see the big granary, and then beyond that there was an open space into Sokolnitz village itself. And Sokolnitz was important because there were two bridges over the Goldbach, and French resistance held out for a while, but eventually they are pushed out up onto those heights that we stopped at earlier on between Sokolnitz and Telnitz. Friant comes up, and what I'd really like to do is fast forward. What we're going to do next after this visit is we're going to talk about the commencement of the ascent of the Pratzen Heights by Saint-Hilaire's division. But because we're here, I'm going to fast forward and talk about the descent of Saint-Hilaire's division. In particular, a chap called General Thibault commanded a brigade of that division. By the time Thibault gets here, he's already ascended the Pratzen Heights. He's been involved in a firefight with Kallerat's 4th column, the Austrians of Kallerat's 4th column. He's moved across the top of the Pratzen Heights and he started coming back down to the south. So he's wheeled round 180 degrees, and now he is attacking down that slope, that same slope that us walkers came down, following
I'm going to do something, hold on.
And Thibault gives us this account. He said, the Russians who were on the flanks of the chateau made little resistance, but those who guarded the house and the outbuildings made a desperate defence. Avenues, stables, barns, everything served them for shelter, and everywhere they fought till the last extremity. A great massacre took place there. All had to be vanquished, man by man. I saw some all alone defending themselves as they might have done in the middle of their battalions. I saw some shot through and ready to drop, loading as calmly as at drill. So we suffered heavily, and the capture of that house, which forms the third action that I can claim on that day, proved to me the truth of the saying that it is easier to kill 6 Russian soldiers than to conquer 1. Finally, having left the chateau behind me, as I was reforming my sections on the march in order to get back into line with Morand and Levasseur, who commanded the other 2 brigades of Saint-Hilaire's division, and reached the Russians' last fighting line simultaneously with them, I saw to my right 120 men taking long shots at a battery which was playing upon the outlets from the chateau. This sort of shooting could only be ridiculous, and I put a stop to it. There was a sub-lieutenant there. I told him to form his men into squads, and then looked round for a captain or major to order him to march with these squads upon the battery, which was on a hillock between the objective points of my brigade and that of Morand's troops. I could not see a captain. Officers were getting scarce, and as my columns were in movement, and the fire of the guns might do them a good deal of damage while the battery was so near that 3 or 4 minutes would be enough to take it, I resolved to carry it myself, and trotted off with my little force. Although mounted on a small Russian artillery horse, I went of necessity faster than my men, so that, having got within 50 paces of the guns, I was 15 paces ahead of them. I was turning half round with a view of calling them to quicken their pace, when the last round which those guns were destined to fire went off, knocking over a score of my men. The sub-lieutenant of whom I have spoken, one of the finest young men I remember, was killed, and I was wounded by a grape shot which, after smashing my right shoulder, bruised my breastbone in 2 places and went through my collarbone. At a longer distance, it is 100 to 1 that I should have been at a longer distance, it is 100 to 1 that I should have been thrown from my horse, but the force of the blow was such that it took all its effect in penetration and only shook me internally. I thought I was struck by lightning. My first words was, I'm a dead man. The next, avenge me. The third,
I shall never fight again. The fourth, well, I've had my money's worth. And I think the key point from that is that the lack of junior officers around here, captains and lieutenants commanding companies, because they've been fighting and leading that attack all the way up to the top of the Pratzen and down again, and the Russians have taken out the command and control system. And so it's been left to a general brigade, brigadier general, 1-star, to lead small units of fighting, because there's no other officers or NCOs around to be able to lead them. So, along with the castle was this chateau here. Was this large granary, and over the years it has certainly changed, because when I first came here, it was a terribly run-down barn, holes in the roof, the plaster was peeling off it. It was ripe for being pulled down. But over the last 5 or 6 years, they spent a lot of money on it, and I think it looks quite nice now.
Yeah, and they kept the features. So.
Yeah. So there we have it. So it was a bloody battle for the French to get back into Austerlitz towards the end of the battle, but they do get back into Austerlitz, and those that can escape from the Russian side escape to the south, as I say, towards the ponds. Further up the line towards towards the Pheasantry and Kobelnitz, Przybyszewski's not so lucky, and he will find himself completely surrounded by Frenchmen, and the only escape that he can come up with is by going to the north, through the Pheasantry, through Kobelnitz, and try to get out to the west, and he will be completely surrounded, and he will be captured along with a lot of his men. Przybyszewski won't be released for a couple of years after the battle, and when he returns home, he submits his after-battle report to the Tsar somewhat late, and he's court-martialed, and we won't hear of him again. So we're going to go and talk about the initial descent now, and from Puntovitz.
A better view of the new greenery. Brand new practically. But this is where a lot of fighting took place. All white. It's pretty cool though. Sole descent of the Pratzen Heights.
First of all, what can we see? Obviously not a lot. But if we follow this track all the way to the top of this valley you can see on your left, it would end up at the village of Pratzen. And then the road from Pratzen goes up. You can see, you can just make out the wooded road going up onto the Pratzen Heights, which are, if that's 12 o'clock straight ahead of us on that path, would be at around about 2 o'clock. In fact, you can just start to make out the high ground. If you look really carefully, you can see they are the Pratzen Heights. Can you just make them out?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can look really hard. But they are there to be seen.
Yeah.
Over to our left, over the next rise, is the village of Puntovitz. And behind you on your right shoulder, behind your right shoulders over there, is the village of Kobelnitz. And from Kobelnitz all the way down to the south flows the Goldbach, where we've come from. Kobelnitz, Austerlitz Pheasantry, Castle Granary, Austerlitz itself, Telnitz, and the ponds. So they're all the way down that way. So we go back to Missouri. Napoleon's giving his orders. Off everybody goes, except for Marshal Soult. Marshal Soult stays with Napoleon because they are waiting for the descent from the Pratzen Heights, and it's seen. The Russians. Sorry, I'm reading the wrong thing here. There we go. So, did the hour strike 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock?
This is the most important
We don't
thing.
know. Chandler says it was 9 o'clock, Segur says it was 8 o'clock. But I guess, were they on Central European side or what was it? I don't know. Of course, there was no big thing at the time. There's no unified time because there's no trains, was there?
So anyway,
time
that's that.
is
I'm going to listen to this.
kept to last
Soult.
night. Was
Soult's divisions were hiding down in here, and it was shrouded in fog, and then they marched up to the Pratzen Heights that way.
10 minutes, answered the marshal. This high ground here is the Star Vinoradi. I don't know why we can't see the cross that we saw earlier on, but we've come that way and then come down this road down. Is there a minute? But anyway, that is the Star Vinoradi. The village over there with the woods, on the other side of the woods, you can probably see the church tower of Austerlitz. And the Pratzen Heights are over to the southwest, over in that direction. This ground, you can see into the distance, you can see how this ground we're on now drops away, and then there's an open plain, and then there's a line of trees. That's the direction of the village of Pratzen. Okay, so to put it into perspective, Saint-Hilaire's division has come up where that line of trees in the far distance, as you can see, that's more or less the route that Saint-Hilaire's division has come up. And Van Damme's division has come up from here, from this direction, moving up to take on, to come up to the Star Vinoradi. And again, like Saint-Hilaire, they thought it was just going to be simply a case of coming up and then swinging around and moving on. But what they find, what Van Damme finds, as he comes up here, all along here is Miloradovic's column, and a bit of Kalarats off to the right, because they had managed to get off and go down the Pratzen Heights. So suddenly Van Damme finds himself in a very unexpected firefight, and on these heights here there is.
So on this side was guard cavalry from both the Russians and the French engaged.
So if we were looking out over there to the right, over to the right here is Krenovitz, where we were standing yesterday evening, and over the back there is the Rauslitz Valley, the Austerlitz Valley, and coming up from that valley was the Russian Imperial Guard, and with their infantry there, and their cavalry, and it's the Constantine's cavalry that are sent in to meet the ones that have chased away the fourth line, and there was another battalion, but I can't remember what regiment it was. And it looks like as if they're going to carry the weight, they're going to carry the day. And there's at this point now, with Van Damme being completely committed against Miloradovic, with his left flank very, very much exposed, with Bernadotte still over in that direction, they're still not fully deployed, but starting to deploy the two divisions of Ribault and Drouet coming up. There's this big open gap, and Napoleon feeling pretty much, to use his word, exposed over there.
So Napoleon's over there and his staff, while the battalion of a square was trying to form square, was tore to pieces and ran past Napoleon and his staff.
Rally those troops, and Rapp leads a charge from over there right the way through here, and somewhere in this vicinity there's the big clash of the two Imperial Guard cavalry that takes place in this general vicinity.
Wow, how cool.
Captain Cognier, who was at the time I think he was just a sergeant in the Imperial Guard, but later becomes a captain. His notebooks are all.
Let's get it without people. Without people.
It's the Imperial Guard are coming up. This is the infantry, so they're coming up from
and this
direction, and they're looking
area.
to see what's.
Well, it's good if you turn it on. Lunch. This is where we're getting lunch. Thank you. Here's some of the reenactors.
Yeah, just come in. I want to introduce you to someone.
We're going to see these people tomorrow. Looks kind of like a period 1805 wagon. Don't know though. Let's go look inside. Oh, they got Christmas lights up on it. I bet it is. This is a neat place. I don't know what the name of it is though, but it's, I think, I guess I'll learn. I think something happened here, like maybe Napoleon was here or somebody was here. We'll see. We'll see. Ah, this is just too cool. I don't know how I managed to do this. Dream come true.
Right on the northern part of the battlefield, so a bit of orientation. To the north, on the other side of the motorway is the main Brun-Olmütz highway. To the northwest, you would normally be able to see the Santon in that direction. Behind us, mechanically, the village of Austerlitz. And off to the east and the other side of
Can't see anything.
Darwin Oradi are the heights behind Austerlitz that were before, just behind Austerlitz on the high ground. And the Pratzen Heights are over in that direction, beyond Austerlitz or whatever. And Zuran would be directly to our west down this track. So we progressed quite a way across the battlefield. Where we were in front of it yesterday evening, and where we can come from, the post house, all orientated. Yep. Okay, so 3 events to talk about in pretty rapid time. First of all is the exploitation in the northern sector of the battlefield. This was the 2 divisions of Caffarelli and Souchet of Lannes 5th Corps, and at the beginning of the battle they were positioned just in front of the Santon in 2 lines in a kind of a checkerboard formation with gaps between all the battalions. And their part in this plan was to be continuing the sweep that had been initiated by Saint-Hilaire and Van Damme, so they should be swinging around as they come forward.
I think I'm going to turn this off. It's right here is what we were looking at. Right there. And the retreat of the Russians and Bernadotte not following up, being lazy as usual. This is a memorial. I think this is the last stop of the day.
I can't understand what it says. There the battle, Professor Rosen, the Saracen and the Emperor Francis.
Okay.
Running from left to right, and just about now, you go behind there, you can just see the rise of the Starvino Radi. Can you see that? Yes. Okay. So going from the left of the Starvino Radi, we would be moving towards the village of Pratzen, which is going to be over there, and the Pratzen Heights over here. Now, do you remember when we started off? When we started off the march from Langeron with Langeron on top of the Pratzen Heights, and I read out from War and Peace that incident where Kutuzov is reluctant to march. The beginning of the battle is where Empress Alexander and Francis were situated to see what was going on, which, as you'll appreciate, is a very good place to be.
The two emperors are right here. Francis II and Alexander I, Tsar Alexander I.
And in fact, Alexander has very little influence in the outcome of this battle at all. And once the clash of the Imperial Guards has taken place over there, Alexander is seen no more. He disappears off this battlefield. So there is no then coordinated control of the Allied forces. And it is up to this point later in the battle, after the clash, that Napoleon will come up. And from this point, he's able to observe what's going on.
So as you heard, Napoleon wound up here.
And moving on the other side of the Starving Radi, but he's seen Van Dam come up after he's had his firefight, remember, with Miloradovich. So Miloradovich would be lined up somewhere along here when Van Dam comes up on the Starving Radi. So that firefight would have happened like that against each other somewhere out there. And once that firefight's been won, once the threat from Constantine hitting Van Dam's left flank has been seen off by the French Imperial Guard, Van Dam is now free to come up and swing around. So he now will come up here and he'll be swinging around in that direction towards the Pratzen Heights. Okay, and as he's doing that, he's sweeping off Miloradovich and he's sweeping off Kalirat, and he's got a free march then all the way on towards the southern part of the Pratzen Heights. And on the inside of his wheels is Saint-Hilaire's division. So Saint-Hilaire doesn't have as much to march as Van Dam. He's on the outside of the wheel, so he's got further to
That's
go.
all you see is snow.
Saint-Hilaire's come up.
But that's okay.
Behind those trees, he's come around and he's swung around, and now we know that Saint-Hilaire, we talked about it, stopped.
So this is the end of the battle, basically.
Closing the door on the Russians in
beginning of the battle, the two
and the pheasantry.
Allied emperors are here, and at the end,
this part of the battlefield, really nothing
the winning
is taking place over here. So,
emperor
is
right here with his entourage. This was put up in 2005, and it still represents the three emperors, because the battle was called the Battle of the Three Emperors.
It's my favourite one. Just be careful of this granite floor, yeah? Don't step on it, it's really slippery.
Okay.
Because it's wet. Yeah. It's like ice.
Further around, it does.
His name's Greg.